Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I got behind schedule today. I had meetings and all kinds of stuff going on. The market's kind of boring, so we're not going to focus on that. We got a 297 XRP. This is interesting. Every once in a while, it's interesting to see the update on people's thoughts. New XRP ranking ladder, big whale. Big whale all through shrimp and worms. They're saying big whale over 50,000 XRP. Don't tell anybody how much XRP you have, even if you want to. This is from the ETF guy, Eric Balkanis. If you go by specific ETF categories, crypto took in double anything else in July. Look at this. Crypto crushed everything, and they're saying spot crypto ETFs. And you can only have a Bitcoin or Ethereum spot ETF right now. The game is still rigged. But what do you think that BlackRock and all the big boys are thinking when they're staring? You've got all of these XRP ETFs on the runway. What do you think they're thinking when crypto ETFs are crushing all the other ETFs? I think it's pretty clear what they're thinking, and it's coming, folks. Don't be the guy who, oh, the market's down, all that. That doesn't mean anything. What matters is what's coming. SEC says liquid staking and related tokens are not considered securities. So staking, so that means Bitcoin and Ethereum still have their advantages. The removal of those advantages is everything, and it's coming. Now here's Trump on the new Fed chair.
A lot of times, they're very good. Like this character that we have in there now, Jerome Too Late Bell. He was very good. He said, "Sir, I'll keep interest rates so low. I'm a low interest rate person, sir." You could hardly hear him talking over the desk. Somebody that worked for me was a big fan of his. Not a fan of his. He hardly knew him, but he wanted him so badly. I did somebody a favor. I put him in there. No, he's too late. He's too late. That name will stick to him.
Can you handicap it at all? Who you're, or you won't know? When will you know? And when will you announce it?
I think the two Kevins are doing well, and I have two other people that are doing well. You know, it's in the end, there are numerous people that are qualified. Everyone on your phone right now, in terms of at your beautiful studio, would be very qualified, in my opinion. You guys are better than most of the people that do it for a living.
The point is that there's a new Fed chair that's coming. We're going to get a whole different thing. Now, if you've never seen it, this is Edward Griffin, the guy that wrote The Creature from Jekyll Island about the formation of the Federal Reserve. Spitting a little truth here.
Well, you asked the question in your book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, what is the Federal Reserve, and what is your answer?
Well, what it is, it's a cartel. It's not a government agency. It has the appearance of it being a government agency, and they went to great lengths to give it that facade. It does have the power of government because Congress voted to give the power of enforcement to it. But in its essence, underneath it, it's a cartel. It's nothing different than a banana cartel or an oil cartel or sugar cartel. It happens to be a banking cartel. They got together, they drew up the rules and regulations for their own industry.
I believe they tried to do the same thing with ETHgate and rig the monopoly for themselves again, and I think the XRP army busted it up.
Self-regulate their own industry is what cartels do, and then they sent it to Congress, and they took off the label at the top that said banking cartel, and they erased that, and they said Federal Reserve Act. Congress passed it into law, and that's why we think it's a government agency, is because if you don't obey the rules that they set down for their own industry, you go to prison. And so it looks like a government agency. But basically the answer to your question is it's a banking cartel.
Actually, I'll take it a step further. I think ETHgate was their first attempt. I think FTX was their second attempt to continue the cartel with crypto. And both of them got busted up. Elon didn't buy Twitter for free speech. He bought it to replace your bank, Venmo, and PayPal combined. I've said this for a long time. He bought it to create the Everything app. You know, the same app that Greg Kidd was calling for all the way back in 2013. And where was Greg Kidd back then? Ripple. Then we've got this. The Global Blockchain Business Council, member Ripple, has partnered with UAE-based Control Alt to assist Dubai Land Department's real estate tokenization project. Control Alt will utilize Ripple's custody infrastructure to preserve the tokenized title of deeds on the XRP ledger. It's not a big mystery where this is going. Look at this from Riz. Writings on the wall. This is from that recent Ondo video. This is old school right here. Back in 2018, 19-ish, there was a group of guys in the XRP community who went and gave a presentation on all the connections between Ripple and Vanguard, BlackRock, PNC, Accenture, CME Group, Mitsui, MUFG, BNY Mellon, Alphabet, Berkshire Hathaway, MoneyGram, HSBC, Temenos, SCB, Bank of America. Very interesting stuff. And then here's one of the old diagrams out of one of the Ripple commercials, I think. How Ripple's cross-border payment solutions work. Let's look at this. XRP Ledger rewrite coming.
You mentioned that if you had to restart from scratch, you would do it in Rust. So why not re-implement it in Rust today?
You know, there's people who there's definitely talk about doing that, and there's also been talk about modularizing the transaction engine so that the transaction engine could execute in a VM, and then you could implement because the transaction engine, having multiple implementations of the transaction engine would be very challenging. So you can imagine a situation where the transaction engine is sort of compartmentalized and runs in a VM, and then maybe like the code around it that does the overlay and the database and the client queries could then be written in any language. It could be modular. We would like to have the code be more modular. It's kind of annoying that you have a monolith that has the consensus engine, the transaction engine, and client queries like all monolithically. That would be great. The big challenge is the certain bits of the transaction engine, particularly the payment engine, are not well enough specified that you could have. So another possibility is like, let's specify how that payment engine actually works. And if we wind up with a situation where we can't specify it, let's fix it. So one example of where you might be unable to specify the payment engine is we use something like floating point, imprecise math, and some of the numbers. And the net result of that is if you do like A plus B minus C, you can get a different result from A minus C plus B. Because of the precision. And there may be cases where like we have to sum up a bunch of stuff and we just do it and subtract and add the things and we just do it in a random order, just the code does it in the order it happens to do it. And so if you try to specify it to produce the exact same result in another language, you need to execute those operations in exactly the same order. And if we picked an order that the code just happens to use that is illogical, it would be like you could actually specify, actually you have to do like Z minus Q plus T minus R plus, right? Like that would be annoying. We would probably want to respecify and have an amendment where at one time we switch over to a more organized, clear, coherent version of that code. And that would be a plus that would be a win all around. But even if we can't do that, we can isolate the pieces of code that have those annoying quirks, like the payment engine, and maybe modularize them into a VM or something so that you could at least have different implementations or other languages for pieces like the overlay. If you're interested in that, you should talk to, I think, Anshal Malhotra at Ripple. We've actually got some proposals from some companies to do some of those pieces. And we're making decisions now about what we think is worth doing and what the order of doing things would be. But it would be nice. They've also talked about like having formal specifications for all of the various transactors, which would make it easier to have multiple implementations of them. So yeah, I definitely think that'd be a good thing. It's just not easy at all.
Okay. Then we've got, this is interesting right here, debate about public versus private blockchains. I'll play you a little bit of this.
Simply because it wasn't regulated. So banks and financial institutions are incredibly regulated companies, and they don't move a needle whatsoever within their own system if it doesn't have the rubber stamp of the regulator. And now the regulators understood what is the power of the blockchain, and particularly what are the benefits of having a system running on a blockchain technology. But here we need to make a distinction. We are talking about not a blockchain like Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. We are talking about private blockchain that effectively will be managed to either centralized regulator or a network of centralized regulators, because this is another thing I don't believe whatsoever. A lot of people are talking about like Ripple as becoming the blockchain of the payment system among banks, or blockchain for tokenized asset and whatever. To a certain extent, it's true that banks and financial institutions can use that technology, but they will not use them directly. They either will fork it, they will copy it, or they will create a layer upon it. So they might be using the power of the public blockchain, but still hold the control on that layer blockchain. They will put it on top. And this is what are in the crypto space known as a layer 2 and layer 3 type of blockchain. So to conclude on this point, imagine like how powerful it becomes if at any point in time, you know exactly where the shares of a company are, for example. Because nowadays there is a huge problem in the market of rehypothecation. So what is rehypothecation exactly? You have your assets. I'm Dario, okay? I have my assets supposedly in my brokerage account, but in reality they're not there. They are only showed on screen. More often than not, be lent to another institution, and this institution lent it somewhere else, and that other counterpart might lend it again in the system, so on and so forth, to the point that the same assets is being rehypothecated virtually multiple times. And this doesn't happen only with shares. It happens with any kind of assets that is an electronic entry on a balance sheet, effectively. So shares, government bonds, commodities like gold and silver, effectively. So tokenization here becomes an incredible step up, because effectively you attach a specific code to a piece of asset, and then you can start tracking it into the system and see exactly where this asset is at any point in time. And for example, on gold, everyone knows that there is a huge amount of like paper gold into the system, okay? That, as we discussed, like all these ETFs and instrument, that they claim they have physical gold, while in reality all they have is paper receipts. So people might want to know where is that gold bar. So that is incredibly powerful. But at the same time, you might also understand that this is a double-edged sword, because a lot of financial institutions have been thriving in this lack of transparency, because rehypothecation is one of the ways that they use to shadow financing themselves into the market, effectively create leverage without posting capital.
Okay, we're going to go into DAIXRP.com. That's how you join through the Patreon, or you can click the join button below any of my YouTube videos, or you can hit subscribe on X. You get the full video, the extended video, and no commercials. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.